Okay, so this is the same integration that you created. So here what we are doing is after we are able to retrieve the file, we are converting the CSV to an XML, and based on that conversion, we are passing it into a splitter with the XPath root row, and then we are assigning similar to the previous integration which we did for outbounds. So we are assigning the employee ID, first name, last name, status, and email with this using this MWell expression. And as you have might have seen that we put one row without email, right? So that we can try out a validation where email is empty. So if it is a text string, so as you can see that you can use not equals to a blank, right, within single quotes, or you can use the this is a keyword empty. This also works in MBell expression. There what we are doing is we are adding a failure message and sending the failure message out via an put integration message with the severity error and the summary of the message that we have selected here, configured here. So that was the overall integration. So this part from the splitter and validation, this you guys already know. And so as part of this integration, that the main learning part of it was how we can use a route strategy, use a doc iterator strategy, and consume the file in a variable and take it forward in our mediation context. So that was the whole purpose of this. So any questions or any doubts?
So far, so good.
Okay, great. So now as you have learned about outbound integrations, inbound integrations, and the next step is about XSLT. So as I said yesterday, your mostly go-to resources for XSLT will be w3.org. So it's a standard repository where it has multiple functions, and you get XSLT related information all across the internet. I think Stack Overflow is a very good go-to place where I normally try to reach out if I have any doubt, have any issues, or Workday community is also another. So basically, XSLT means it's an extensible style sheet language transformation, which which is, let's say, it's like a template based language. You write XML and you write a style sheet, and using that style sheet you transform incoming XML messages to different formats. It can be XML, it can be CSV, it can be text, whatever. But the point here is, why do we need XSLTs, right? So there can be certain scenario or certain very complicated requirements where you, let's say, here I have mentioned very two basic requirements, right? For example, you have SSNs, right? There's a particular format of SSNs. So let's say your vendor doesn't want the SSN entire, only wants the last four digit. So you can use XSLT functions to do that. Or maybe you want to do a if else logic. You can use that in the XSLT, right? Definitely you can do if else logic in the MBell expressions, right? Yesterday I showed you one such sample, right? If this then this, right? But if it is a very complex thing, right, if there are multiple nested if else, then I would suggest it is better to use XSLT, because XSLT is faster than MWell expressions. So your performance of your integration will always be better. So basically, XSLT, this language has three versions. So 1.0 was very, I mean, it was way back. Um, it provided like core stuff about this, but XLT 2.0. So XLT 2.0 gave us some kind of additional flexibility, um, different functions, format dates, date time, all that basic stuff, group by, and finally came XSLT 3.0, which gives us streaming capabilities. So streaming capabilities is it's very it's a very important tool, not a tool, a feature, I would say, because whenever you are using XLT 2.0, it actually loads the entire XML into the memory and tries to process it. So the runtime memory consumption is high. But XLT 3.0 provides the streaming capabilities, which basically helps Studio to use use the XML messages sequentially. Instead of loading the entire data set into the memory, it loads sequentially, and you can use different elements like XSL iterate, basically a kind of a for loop, and iterate through each and every node. You can use XSL accumulators, so basically which again helps you to helps you to collect the data, use it in different calculations. Kind of sample use case for XSL accumulator is, for example, you are consuming two different reports and you want to generate a single file. So some data is coming from one report, some data is coming from another report. Let's take an example. Let's say you are generating a um, job profile or a worker file, right? And a particular worker profile is tagged to a has a particular job profile for every worker in Workday. And for that job profile, there will be compensation grade and other different information. So compensation grade and compensation grade specific information, you won't get it in the same report, which you are building based on worker. So you have to have a separate table, a separate report for compensation grade, comp grade, and other attributes related to compensation grade, and you are bringing it, and you want to generate as output file which will have worker, its demographic data, its job profile, comp grade related to the job profile, and other associated attributes for that job profile. And let's say you want to, so in order to bring that entire thing together, so you have to identify, okay, this is the worker, for that this is the job profile, for this job profile on the comp grade file, what comp grade is there. So XSL accumulator allows you to take both the data and look up, like you take a job profile and look it up on the comp grade file, comp grade report output, and see, okay, is it there? Fine. This is the job profile. This is the comp grade specific to this job profile, and okay, it has, let's say, five other different field value I want to pick. So you pick it and finally generate an XML. I would say the using Excel accumulators and iterate, these are very advanced level of XSLT transformation logic, and it is something that you will slowly learn in the more complex thing you build. But for this, as a scope of this training, what I want to make you understand is, try with the basic thing, how the basics of XSLT work. For that, I will walk you through certain XSLT codes, how we can handle it, and then slowly take you few levels up. Okay. So having said that, I will first show you a simple uh, XSL code which you can find in this project. So here what I did was, it's a very simple assembly where I have added this XML in a write step. If you see the XML, the root node is called root, and its individual data row is row, and it has individual fields here. Similarly, I added three rows of data in an XML format. Think of this as this is one row, this is second row, this is third row, and these are columns. And then I want to put some logic. I want to change this tags. Um, Maybe I want to change it from active. So let's say if it's active, I want to put it as A. If it's inactive, I want to put it as I, right? So how will the XSLT look? If we go here, we op- so this step, how you add it here is simple. If you click on the async mediation, okay, yeah, if you go up, this is the create XSLT. This is for XSLT 2.2. So I would suggest always use this one, which is XSLT Plus, which adds streaming capabilities and adds XSLT 3 version is 3.0. XSLT 3.0 is always faster than XSLT 2.0. So always go with this, and it's retro compatible. So if you use this component, it XSLT 3.0 can handle the version 2.2 as well. So if you click on this, and then you have to either you have to add, I'll show you. If you add it here and put put this, and either you can click here, and from here you can create an XSLT file like this. Now next, finish. It will automatically create this header code here. But if you do not want that, normally what I do is I create my XSLT in the Oxygen tool like this, and I run it against the XML, and then once I am satisfied with it, I add it here in the studio. And if you want to go by that route, once your file is done, you can just basically click on here. Simple. Workspace, if you have it in your studio assembly, or you can go click on external and just click on whatever XSLT file you want to add. That is the way you add an XSLT plus component step inside an async mediation. So let's see how this is working.
So basically, you create the XSLT file on Oxygen.
Yes,
Okay.
and but you can use it in studio as well. But for that you just need to click on this create XSLT file and code it in
Uh,
here itself. But I don't. It's again based on, it varies from developer to developer. So I prefer using Oxygen because in the best thing about Oxygen is you can select the XML data source and select the XLT file, and if you click here, it will run and show you if there is any error and how the output is coming. Everything you can see here. You don't have to always go to the studio and then deploy, run, and see. And I find it very it's not needed, right?
can you click on the interface of Workday Studio just to see how it is if it's not?
If it is not there, or what
Yeah,
what
if it's not that convenient, or just to see how it looks.
yeah, yeah, this will look like this.
Oh,
Same
okay.
thing.
All right.
Same thing. Okay. So here I'm, as I said, that XSLT Plus is backward compatible. So I'm using XSLT Plus, but here I'm using the version as 2.2. If you want to use XSLT 3.0, then you just need to put 3.0 as the version. So again, these headers will automatically get created whenever you create, either in Studio or Oxygen. For example, in Oxygen, Oxygen as well. If you click on this XSLT style sheet, you see it will generate the header automatically. So if we go back, so what I'm doing, trying to achieve is, so this is a, I will show you from here. I'll close this. This is the code. Okay, and this is my sample XML. Mm, it is open here. Oh my God, I have so much going on. Yeah, yeah. So, okay. So this studio assembly is from this right step. It is basically getting this data. And I want to transform this data with a different root name, a different row name, different individual field, individual tags, XML tags. I want to change this, and also I want to do some transformation, actual transformation where I will change active to A, inactive to I. So that means when the data from this right step flows past this and gets stored, get hits the store step, I should get a get an output, something that should look like this. So I'm just hitting Control Shift and P, it will automatically format it. So I want to do this. So how does this come up? So this is an XSL template. So template match means if you put a slash here, so what it does is it just iterates from it. You are basically telling the Excel style sheet that this is go by this format. So it's nothing but root row, then this, then root row. It's just traversing one row at a time. Then I want this, right? Okay, did I close it? I'll just run it again. So what I want the root node to be called root underscore node. So after XSL template, I put this a begin tag, and every begin tag has to have a end tag. It's fine. Is it visible? I'll just minimize it a bit. Looks good. It's visible, right? Can anyone confirm?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
So this root node, you see here, it ends in this. So the syntax is less than, greater than. Within these two brackets, you have to have the root node here, and the end tag will be same with a slash after the this less than symbol. And mostly if you add like this, test, and put close this, automatically Oxygen creates the end tag so that you don't have to worry about closing the tag. So what I will do is my begin tag, my root node tag is done. Now I have to iterate through each and every row in the XML, right? We have 3 rows. It can be 3,000, 300,000. So we have to write XSL for each select root slash row. So this is XSL for each means it's like a for loop again. So for each row of what? This for from root till row, right? This for each block. That means for each row of data. And whatever you put inside will come up in the output file. Then we want the employee ID tag to show up as employee number. So you put a employee number, again a begin tag and end tag, and you want the value to be printed like this 1 2 3 4 5, the employee ID. So as in XSLT, you, like for example in SQL, right, we use select the field name, right? Same thing. The keyword is XSL value of. So again, in Oxygen, you just need to write XSL, put a colon. It will start giving you options. What do you want to use? If you see value, you just click on this. It will create this. And here, so XSL value of what, from what value you want to take? You want to take the value of this, which is nothing but the tag, XML tag of the particular field for which the data you want to pull. So this is employee ID. And remember, you are in your for each clause, you have mentioned root slash row. Okay. So that means similar to XPath in the ML expressions when we were using, right? Or splitter. So you have mentioned root slash row. That means you are now inside the row. So you are now here. So you can directly put employee ID, right? So if there is another before employee ID, if there is another child row, then in that case, you have to put this XPath. This is called XPath, child node, whatever it is, slash employee ID. So few days back, I think we spoke, you have in XSLT in XPath, you have to traverse node by node to reach to that XML data element which you want to fetch. Understood as of now?
Yeah, all of those auto complement features that you have on Oxygen are not available on the Workday Studio interface, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Is it? Let's see. Yes, some of them are. As you can see, it gives you begin
Close the
tag and
tab.
end tag. Yeah, but I don't think XSL value.
Yeah, that one is not.
Yeah, that was not auto-populating. So yeah,
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
it's like a
the other
basic,
way. So
yeah, basic trial version, But I, to be honest, I don't really feel comfortable using this. I always go with Oxygen. Um, so, okay. So this is how you create the for loop to iterate every row in your XML file, and as how you pull the value of each field is using XSL value of. Select within double quotes your name of your XML element. If you have multiple child nodes, you have to traverse through the child nodes to the element with a XPath. Child node 1 slash child node 2 slash till you get to the point. Then you want fn, right? First name you want to put fn. Similarly, fn begin tag end tag, you add it here. Similarly, last name like that. So now let's say you want to have the active, like, let's say you want the active as it is. If it is active as it is, you know, you can write whatever tag you want and just XSL value of status, similar to how you added last name, first name, employee ID. But let's say you want to convert it from active to A, or act, inactive to I, just transform it. Then you have to put an if else. If it's active, then A, if else, simple. So in XSLT, if else comes as XSL choose when otherwise. So this one is using a variable I have added for demonstration purpose. I will come to that. Let's concentrate on this piece of code. So if whenever you write an XSL choose, automatically you get an end tag, and along with this statement, right? This is your statement, and this is how you put comments in XSLT. Okay. So understand this. So choose means it's like if, or not exactly. So choose means within this choose, you are actually determining, giving the criteria. It's like the if statement. When will this fire? So XSL choose when test means is the argument you want to put here. What based on what argument? So if status equals to within single quotes active, then XSL text. So why text? Because for this particular element, you have already initialized the XML tag. This one employee status no variable, right? You have initiated the XML tag. This is the begin tag and end tag. And within that, you just want to put a text value, right? For that, this is the syntax. It's XSL colon text. This means is whatever you put within this, it will just print it out within these two tags in the output. If you put one A123, it will put 123. Okay. So that's how, and let's say the else clause, right? For else we have otherwise. So XSL when you add it here, say status equals to active, right? Then you put whatever you want to do. Now the else part. For else, you have to use the keyword otherwise. Again, just again and otherwise, and on the otherwise, you just put whatever processing logic you put it. Okay, this is how an if else clause works. Again, if there is any nested, then you have to within this, if you want to do another nested logic, again simple, you have to add again another XSL choose, then when in the when XSL when you have to put the argument which you the criteria, and similarly drill down based on your requirement. So this is how you can use basic XSL choose when otherwise to transform an XML element based on the your business logic. Is that understood? This part
Yes.
also. So this is without using variable, right? Now, what if there is another way? Because I just wanted to tell you that let's say you are, you have a huge XML XSLT2 code, and this is not a direct status. There might be uh, XPath, massive XPaths, right? Child node 1 slash child node 2, you're traversing, going down. So, and you have to use multiple XSL choose when blah blah, and your XSLT code will, you have to write a lot of code, right? Smarter way is using a variable, and this variable thing is very useful for other purposes as well based on your business criteria. So how do you define a variable? Before your template, you create the template, you use the keyword XSL variable. Similar, you just write XSL, put a V, it will give you this, and here you initialize the variable. Okay. So for example, in our case, let's take the XSL variable name. You have employee status. Fine. Now you have to, you have defined the variable. Now you have to assign the a value to the variable. Again, after, always keep in mind, after the for each loop, because here before the for each begins, there is no data, right? You will not, you are not fetching data. From this step, you are actually fetching data from the XML. So once you initiate the for loop for each, then you call the variable and pass the value. This is the syntax. XSL variable name, you will put the name whatever is there, and how you are passing the value. Select status means whatever is the value of this, it will go. So for the first row, when this for loop executes, the your variable gets assigned as active, but for the second row, it is inactive. So when the loop goes for the second round, for the second row of data, this variable will be inactive. So if you go down, so this part of it, employee status variable. So again, same XSL choose. Instead of writing when test is status, you just call the variable. And using oxygen, calling a variable is very simple. You just need to put a dollar sign, and whatever variables you have selected, it will pop up. For example, show you XSL variable. Sorry, not Excel variable. Let's say let's do a XSL choose when test, right? Here you're passing the value of the variable as an argument. So basically what you do is to put a dollar, and whatever variables you have defined in the in the code, if there are 15 variables, all the 15 will come up. You just need to choose it. Done. And then put whatever processing you want to do. Same thing I did here. So when test, the variable is active, you put it as A, otherwise put it as I. This is a very simple thing, but let's say you have to write here worker slash, you know, personal info slash, have to go drill deep slash. Instead of writing all that, you can just write it one time, store it in a variable here. This thing, instead of putting it here, put it here, and just call the variable. Simple, like any other programming language. So that is how you play with variables. Is that understood, guys?
I, I
Yes,
just
no,
have
maybe. Yeah.
one small question.
Mhm.
Let's say that we get two big files. This is the method that we have to follow according to Workday to get that bond together in a single file.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, there are different ways of it. You can use hash maps. There is, you can use hash maps as one way. XSLT 3.0 is another way. So, but overall, your basic building blocks of XSLT are these things which I have told, and I will show some more demonstrations uh, as well. So in order to combine two files, basically what you need to have a common field, right, between those two files.
Oh,
That
that's
is
when
the
you create the variable
accumulators.
to store
That
the
is when
data.
that is when we create the accumulators. So using the accumulator
Okay.
and contextual, there is a thing called contextual variable which I will show you after this. So using variable accumulators, you can look up. So for example, one set of one file has employee ID, another file has it's like a primary key and foreign key, right? One file you have the primary key as employee ID, another file you have foreign in the same file you have foreign key of email ID, and the other file email ID is coming. So your accumulator will, what will do is, you will take the email ID from the second file, look it up where it is matching, and then pull the employee ID and join the entire data
Oh, I see. Great.
that way. But again, these are not very, you know, it's a very complex use of XSLT. It's, I would not say rare, but it's not very common. Okay, so if you run this, the final output will be like that. Similarly, just like active and inactive, you can have validations, like whether the email exists or not. Same thing which we did here in the studio, right? Using validate expression, you can do the same with XSLT as well. And it depends. If it's a straightforward row by row thing, simple thing, use validate expression. Or if you are creating a XSLT, right? You have to create for your purposes of your requirement. You can use those validations and there as well. I will I will demonstrate you an end-to-end integration where I have used multiple, kind of variable assignments, validations, and all. Going back to our exercise, this is clear. Then there is another business case which you will find, which you will get is creating an output file, um, an output CSV file using a header, maybe a footer, doing some counts, how many rows, trailer rows. So that also you can handle with XSLT. Let's say you have to have a comma separated file. You have to put delimiters, all the commas, and let's say there might be a scenario where within the comma within the individual fields, let's say address field, right, 123 comma street 1 comma, right. So we can have addresses where in the address fields there are commas. So if you are generating a CSV file which is having comma in the individual field data, so if you open that in Excel, the structure of the file gets distorted. So in order to avoid that, you can wrap it within double quotes, individual fields, right? That's a standard approach we normally take. So if you have those kind of requirements, and this is again not specific to Studio only, in EIBs as well, you can use the same logic, right? So this one where I was actually consuming a report, and this was the report name. We were sending some data to the Salesforce team. Um, so this is a real-time code that we created. So what we did here was that you see the variables. I initialized this variable like called it delimiter and assign the comma here. Then initialize another variable called next line. So this is actually the code for next line. So again, don't have to memorize this. You will find it in Workday community or any for that matter. Search in Google anywhere. And this one is called wrap. Wrap is nothing but to wrap the individual field with a double quote. And I had to create a header as well for this file. So here the header starts. Simple template match. You're going. So no for loop now because I will print the header only once. Row, the when I'll be printing the row in the output file, then I will do the for loop. So just because the header is once, I will print the header first. So what I'm doing, okay, I'll show you the output file. I think that will be clearer. Hmm, 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 hmm. Where is the sample XML for this? I think this one. Let's run it. Oh, sorry, I didn't choose the right one. Okay. Okay, so this is how the data will come up. See the employee ID, the legal name, you have the wrapped in double quotes with a comma, then again wrapped in double quotes, the field data, comma. Okay, so how we are doing this is, just a second. So if I go up, so this wrap is just nothing but the quote. I'm calling it first how I'm printing the data with using XSL value of. Then I'm putting header item 1. This is nothing but a tag and just putting it the text here. And the output file will not generate this header item 1 in the output, this tag in the output. Why? Because I have mentioned that XSL output is method is text. That is why here I haven't provided the output type here. So that is why when we were trying to just print a text, we had to mention this XSL colon text to make the style sheet understand that okay, this value is nothing but a text value. But here I've already initialized this, mentioned the output method as text. So just putting this. So employee vision ID, employee ID, legal name, same thing. I'm wrapping it with double quotes, then putting a comma, which is delimiter here from the variable. I print all the different headers one by one and put a next line here. Done. Then comes my data row, similar to how I used it here. So the data row starts here. I have to wrap it every data element, every field with a double quote. So I put one here, and between I'm calling the XML, whatever the XML element I have, the XML tag name I have. If we go down, it's all straightforward. Then here I have used a next nested choose when otherwise. So what I'm doing is the logic here is there's a field called appointment. So this particular client, they do their appointments like uh, associate, senior associate, principal, and the people who are not appointed, they have a status called not titled. So we had to send this information to Salesforce. So what we were doing is the logic here, as you can see. So if first of all, if the appointment is not blank, so if there is an appointment, then if it is a chairman, then we are sending it as we're converting it from chairman to principal. Otherwise, whatever the appointment is, fine. So this choose ends here. Out of that, if there is no appointment, that means that is that employee worker doesn't have is not yet appointed. So the Salesforce side, they would like to call it not titled. So we are putting it as not titled. Make sense, guys?
Yeah, so in one system it is called, for example, let's use that in Workday, it is called chairman, and
Yeah, they
this is
wanted
the
to have
Salesforce
exactly.
integration, right?
Exactly. They want to
Okay,
have it as they want to have the data chairman to be called out as principal, and
principal.
for not titled ones we don't put anything, but they want it to be called out in the output file as not titled. So we're using a nested if else clause. It's basically nothing but an if else, right? So choose when. So choose is something. So it's like this is if this do this, otherwise else do this. So in XSLT is just one extra thing, choose when otherwise. That's the block, total block of if else logic. And you can do date formatting here as well, like as I have mentioned here, the hire dates and all. So format date is a function. You can just put it m01, it will basically do mmdd y or whatever uh, thing you want to, whatever format you want to do. So and finally you put a next line. Your for each ends here. So whenever you write the XSL for each, your end tag will automatically get populated. Your template ends here, which you started with template match with a slash default, and then finally style sheet ends. And when this runs, it will give you a data output like this. Makes sense?
Yes, and that would check the entire rows of the
Yeah.
document, right?
So exactly. So what you're doing here is whatever if your XML has this one is your XML, right? So report data, report entry. So each report entry is one row. Similarly, whatever if there are 300,000 rows, this particular the header will be printed once. Then your data will be like for each, right? So for each, it will loop through 300,000 times and write the full CSV output file. And again, when I started with Studio, so when I got certified, so I was at that point of time I was working with a partner organization, Workday, who was a Workday partner. So when we got certified in Workday Studio, so there were no as such training sessions for XSLT. Uh, they just gave us the w3.org, and it's like you try this, you learn the hard way. So but yeah, sometimes community helps, sometimes Stack Overflow helps. So that is how I think everyone learns. If someone has background in XSLT, great. If not, you learn on job. So the more complicated stuff you do, you get pick it up, you enhance your skills. Is that clear up till now?
Yes.
Okay. So now I will take you through an integration, a real-time integration which we built, which actually uses XSLT, and we are using passing data from Studio into the XSLT code, pulling out data from the XSLT outside, doing validation. So it's going to be pretty interesting. Again, so this is the integration. So the requirement again, this is a boomerang integration. If you go back, if you remember that boomerang integrations are the ones which takes data from Workday, do some process that data, to apply some business logic and push it back to Workday. So it's and you can use this in terms of automation purposes as well. So the background of this integration was that the HRIS team, the admin team, they were basically whenever an employee was getting terminated, so they used to go in Workday and they used to look that employee up and see that if the employee is a coach. So in there for that client, what the thing was that they had a concept of coach who is to mentor the team members. So if a employee is getting terminated, HRs used to go in, see if there is the employee worker is a coach or not. If yes, then they will go to the coach organization, open the organization, look at the members, and do a change org assignment for each of the members, and remove their um, coach organization assignment. So basically, pushing the members out of that coach organization, and then they will, you know, terminate it. Like not terminate, they will inactivate the coach organization and all. Now that was an entire manual process. And there were times when HRs used to forget to check for the coach organization and remove the members, and there used to be a lot of problem for in during audits. So what we did was we created this integration which will take care of the entire business process flow, which I just mentioned. How we are doing this? Simple. So first we are fetching the using a report as a service RAS report. We are fetching terminated employees. So and in the launch parameters, we are passing the termination date on or after. So let's say if I want to see how many employees got terminated in the month of February, I'll put 1st February and run the integration. So it will return all the terminated employees from 1st February till today. That is the 20th February. So once the integration runs, again, I'm using a count of log and processing the pulling the date parameter from the launch parameter. We have already learned this lp.getDate. Then we are calling this section, which is nothing but a local out, which is calling this fetch term. How we will find it? We will right click on this, click on declaration in workspace. That will take us to here. So here the game begins. This one is basically nothing but I have put a async mediation and a put integration message here, just in case if there is any error while calling the report, I can trap the error here. How do you do that? You always you create the async mediation and click on handle downstream error as true. That means if there is any error here in the component after this, it will trap it here. So again, this is kind of best practice that I follow. And as you see in real time scenario, you can get, for example, maybe your tenant gets, you might not expect any errors here, but might be due to some reason the tenant is down or some intermittent issue, and you might get an error that report is not available, unable to find the report. So I mean, you can trap that and your context error message will give you the details. Moving on, I pull the RAS report, call it, take the count. Why I am taking count is, again, this is very important. Just keep in mind, this is also a best practice thing. If you are using a splitter, so and if there is no row that is going into the splitter will throw an error. Fine, there's no problem in it. It will throw an error that no, there are no rows to split, right? But no rows to split, it's a very technical term. You as a developer will understand. If someone else is supporting the integration, they will not understand, right? What happened. So for that, what I normally always do, and you can also do it in your real time integrations, is after the workday out rest, put an eval step. Same report data report entry. On top of that, put a count, and then same similar to how we used to assign the data to the our properties. You assign that count, and in that validate expression, you verify whether the count is whether there is any data coming out of the report. If not, then just pass it along as a failure message, and you can send it as an info, not an error. The integration will not complete with errors or not fail. It will complete to success, but it will say that I will instead of telling there no rows to split and throwing an error, you can just mention that whatever. For my case, it was no terminated employees fetched within the within that particular date range or not. So that way, it is clean. Whoever is monitoring the integration will not get surprised by seeing that, oh well, it's some technical error and all. So that way you can handle that. Then I do the split, assign all the data, whatever I have. We have done this in our hands-on, and finally call the get workers API. Why? Because I have the terminated employee. Now I want to get some additional details about that terminated employee to identify whether the employee was a coach or not. I could have gone with creating another report, calling another workday out rest, and identify the assigned organization to the terminated employee. But instead of that, I went with the API approach. Again, you can go with another RAS report as well. So then if you go here, it will pull you here. So we are doing a get workers. Same thing. This is also you did, right? You pass the property employee ID here in the worker reference to tell the studio that what worker I want to get the information for. And for you, I guess in our training session, this was your get workers request 40020, and you were in the response you wanted wanted personal information, employment information, and qualifications. But for my case, I just want to know whether the terminated worker was a coach or not. Means whether the terminated worker had any organization, or what are the organizations that the worker is assigned to. So for that, in the okay, where did I go? We just need to include the roles. Why? I will explain later. So okay, let me explain this. Include roles means, if in this particular for this particular client, if the worker is a coach to someone, he has a separate role called PDP leader. So in order to bring down my XML, bring down my get workers response, because the lesser the data the studio has to deal with, the faster the execution. So in the response group, I just mentioned that include the roles, include the roles. So if the output has a role assignment called PDP leader, I can filter it out based on an if logic, right? That if it is there, if the worker has a role called PDP leader, he is a coach. PDP is professional development program. So he is a coach. Fair enough. I hit it here, called the Workday out soap. We did it in the training, and then we are consuming the response. Okay. And the response, how does a response look? This is how a response look. So you have envelope is the root, body, worker response, for which worker you have requested the response for, then the worker and all the data for the worker. And as I told that worker response is massive. Get workers provide a huge response if you don't filter out the request here, which I did using these two flags. Then in the eval, I am initializing two variables, whether it's a coach, N, what is the coach organization, blank. Then I have added an XSLT. What does this XSLT do? Simple. Now, this is very interesting. Here, same thing. For we are doing a template match, XSL for each. Okay. So as you can see, I showed you that envelope, body, worker response. You have to drill down till here to get the actual worker information, right? So your for each statement is starting from this root, this node till the organization role. So in this case I'm drilling further down, right? So you see here worker data, role data, organization role data, then organization role. I think it should be somewhere down below. Anyways, so I go in, I'm checking if the worker is a coach. I put an XSL if. Remember, in other programming languages, you can put an else with an if. But for XSLT, if you want to have an if else, your go to logic is choose when otherwise. When you are putting if, it's a open and shut thing, right? If this is this, do this. That's there is you do not have else in XSLT. For else, go to choose when otherwise. Keep that in mind. So I'm doing it if organization role reference, if it has a if it at all has any have any organization assignments like role assignments, and if it has, and then If the role ID is PDP leader, then do all the stuff. Okay. What I'm doing here is, if you go back here, this is called a contextual variable. What I'm trying to do is, I am getting, I'm using this get current mediation context to initialize this variable. Why? I want to take the coach organization. I want to put it in this flag is coach so that I can use it later after the XSLT to do a validation. Okay. So what I'm doing here is, I initialize this contextual variable here, and in order to do that, you have to use these two initialization syntax. One is tube, one is CTX. Going back, if employee is a coach, that means if he has a role called PDP leader, then this coach organization variable I am assigning. Remember, in our sample we did XSL variable name select. Within that select we were assigning status. Similarly, we are assigning this role data. We are traversing, going drilling to the coach organization, assigning here, and this I am assigning into is coach. This XSL value of this contextual variable will will ensure that I can use this is coach variable outside of this XSLT code inside an eval or inside a validate expression. So I got that here. Then what am I doing? I am doing another get workers. In the same XSLT, you see envelope body get workers request. I am creating another get workers, but here instead of passing the request criteria, instead of passing the employee ID, I am passing the organization reference ID. Where did I get the organization reference ID from? That means I'm passing the organization name, which I got from this variable assignment, coach org. I'm passing it here. Why? I'm asking Workday that give me all the members who are part of this organization. Why? Because understand this. I had the worker is terminated. I got the details of the worker, and the worker is a coach. Now I am doing another get workers by passing the value by giving the second get workers an input value of the coach organization so that I get the child members. So worker, I get the terminated worker. I'm verifying whether it's a coach or not using this contextual variable. Then I'm doing another get workers by giving the input parameter of as a organization, coach organization. I'm getting the members. If there are 4 members, I'm coming back to my studio. I'm getting the members again, iterating one by one. Splitter, if you remember, splitter iterates one by one. One by one, I'm iterating through each member, and finally calling another Workday out soap called change organization assignment. It's a task in Workday basically, and I'm doing it using web service. So we go back. This is done. Control goes back to members. Everything is done. Again, control goes back to worker. This is done. Second worker. Say this loop, this nested loop is moving on and on using this assembly. So as I said, from the XSLT, we got the contextual variable that if it is a coach or not. If it is not a coach, simple employee ID, whatever the terminated worker is not a coach, skipping this row, moving on to the next. So we don't need to remove the members, so we can just move on to the next. This is what we are doing. And for and using this XSLT, what we did, we created this particular XML message. So this is nothing but what I'm trying to create using XSLT. I'm creating this code basically, this code. Instead of passing the employee ID, I'm passing the organization reference, as you can see here. Instead of in the request criteria, our request reference was worker reference, but I'm not using this request reference at all. What I'm doing is I'm passing the request criteria and passing the organization here. And this message flows out of the XSLT step. We're doing a validation, and this message in the mediation context goes here, and I'm finally with using this workday outsop, I'm actually hitting workday, and I will only hit workday if if the worker is a valid coach. So here execute when comes into picture, because because see, if the more web service calls you make, your integration becomes slower. To make it sharper, finer, smarter, you don't want an unnecessary web service call. So if I didn't put this code here, what it will do, it will do the web service call and it will return and give a return that no response found, because the worker is not a coach, right? So I don't want to do that. I don't want to save that amount of increase that amount of performance. So I put the execute when. Then finally, I again now go to the members, which is nothing but this section. Now I'm here, I go back, then I do some validations and all that. I am taking the member count, how many members were there under the coach, right? And how many, the removal count, initialize it as zero. I think I uh, talked about it earlier as well. So then I'm doing the splitting and row by row. I'm finally, when everything is done, I'm sending an email to the HRs that, hey, all this is done for this worker. So when I will send the email, if all the members are removed, how do I know all the members are removed? This initialization I did from member count is the count of the response which I received from the get worker, second get workers, number of workers, which is nothing but number of rows. This, the number of times this tag is getting repeated in the response. That means number of workers, number of members in the coach organization. And finally, if and here I am actually increasing the count. So when all the members are removed, the member count becomes equals to the removal count. Finally, send out that email that this is done. So again, this is, I would say, a bit of complex integration, but this actually encompasses everything, all the foundational learnings that we did for all the components, along with XSLT, along with uh, consuming REST, consuming RAST report, hitting the web service using Workday OutSoap in the totality. Questions? Did this overwhelm you guys?
Well, it's kind
Mm.
of a mix of HTML style and coding, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's
like, yeah,
understandable.
yeah. I mean, I could have removed that usage of XSLT. I could have, again, for that I had to do another round of call the another report, take the output of the report, again split it, again to evaluate eval expressions, eval step, mval expressions. But I uh, combined everything in an XSLT code. Why? Because XSLTs are faster. If I would have called another RAST report, right, it would have decreased my efficiency of my integration. And the more eval expressions you add, the more if else logic you write inside the eval expressions, the more time it takes to finish. But again, this is a bit advanced level of development, but in the beginning, try to use as much components as you can while creating an integration. Once you start having good grasp on XSLTs, then you can handle things in XSLT as well.
Yeah, it's good to know that we have a resource like this.
Yeah, 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 right. So for example, there's a termination date. You are taking it from a launch parameter and using lp.getDate, you are storing it into a variable name called termination date. If you use this statement XSL colon param, and if you pass the exact value of the property name, then you can then your property value flows into your XSLT. You can directly use it as a variable like this here. Okay. And another thing is, you cannot in your XSLT code, you cannot put greater than and equals to. Like if salary is greater than 100,000, right? You cannot put this because it actually is commonly a symbol of the XML tag. So for any greater than and less than, you put GT, either ampersand GT or ampersand LT. GT is greater than, LT is less than. So that is
Yeah,
why,
it's GT
yeah,
is for greater than, right?
yes, yes. I have
Okay.
added this XML. I have coded it as ampersand LT, ampersand GT, so that you can take a reference of how you can have it. So this is nothing but this code is similar to the one that I showed you.
And what about if you define a parameter and a variable when you call it with the select, you will get them on the same list, or it's going to be a separate.
No, it's like, let's say you have created a termination date, right? For example, this
Uh-huh.
one. Let's say termination date on or after. This is your property name. If inside the XSLT you add this XSL param, okay, and pass this as your parameter name, right? Your XSLT will treat this, take XSLT will consider that the value of this same as this.
Oh no, but I'm referring to the go back to there. Yeah, if you when you call
Mhm.
it to value of select equals when you put the dollar sign, it's going to show you on the
Yes, yes,
list all the
yes.
values
Yes,
of
not all
that
the
you
value.
have defined.
Whatever the
Okay.
value your property, your props is bringing from the studio assembly inside your XSLT code. Here the parameter, the difference between variable and parameter is, variable you initialize inside the XSLT code, you assign the value of the variable inside the XSLT code, but parameter is which you pass on from outside to your XSLT code.
Okay. Great.
Got it?
Got
Okay.
it.
So that is actually the last topic, guys.